Joining us to talk more about this legacy is Karen Woods. She's live with us from Toronto. Karen is with Solstice Public Affairs. Here's a quote from the filmmaker, and I'd like to get your take on this. She said in an interview earlier this year, the silence within families has added to the power of the Exclusion Act, compounded generation after generation. The film showing how it has impacted 4 generations of women, all shaped in part by this act. Talk to me, because so many people see this as ancient history, but it still impacts people today in a sense.
Well, you know, it's funny, isn't it? History always repeats itself until we learn. And I like to let our audience know that the Chinese Exclusion Act is, no pun intended, is not exclusive to America. Up north in Canada, we also had a similar measure. It's called the Chinese Immigration Act, which was passed by the then Liberal government under Prime Minister Mackenzie in 1923, which is to bar Chinese immigrants coming from China. But I think the undertone is that overwhelming sense of fear that because Chinese workers and immigrants, not because that we were inferior, but exactly the opposite, because we worked too hard, that somehow they were afraid that we might have, taken over. So it's really this sense of Chinese are too successful, that is the sort of paranoia that triggered this sort of racist discrimination, which then in turn was legalized by the government.
Lo also said this about her mother. She spent most of her life hiding who she was, lying about where she came from and how she got here. These family secrets, it's just not confined to that family. I'm sure the story spreads. The ripple effects are far-reaching. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think that's exactly the concept of, a perpetual foreigner. Never mind that we were born here. Never mind that we speak English without an accent. Never mind that we're actually Christians. And never mind that we actually assimilated. I can speak to you from a personal experience that I actually have to use an anglicized form of my name because the business I'm in, lobby side politics, is predominantly male, a white, Caucasian. So for a woman of, color to succeed in this business, I have to soften and anglicize my name just to go through the doors. And I can certainly relate to the filmmakers and her relatives that, the constant fear that, we have to assimilate, the pressure that we have to fit in is always reigning at the back of everyone's mind because we had the Chinese Exclusion Act. And to date, we are actually the only ethnic minority group other than, the Japanese Americans to face this sort of discrimination. And in my opinion, no adequate redress has been done.
Well, you mentioned the Japanese Americans, of course, the internment camps during the Second World War. But talk to me about the importance of looking back at this historical moment in time now. There are places all around the world where exclusion acts are being put into place or being urged, although now it's Syrian refugees in many cases. And, of course, here in the United States, the so-called Muslim ban. So talk to me about framing that history and looking at today through that lens.
It's funny. We live in a facetious time where we elect a facetious president. We have elected a president that overwhelmingly was supported by, the alt-right movement, so-called white supremacist. But shockingly, he was extremely, and he still is extremely popular among first-generation Chinese, in particular those have immigrated to America from England. And I like to remind everybody that conservatism is no white supremacy. And, white supremacists probably cast the same contemptuous gaze down those Chinese immigrants who supported Trump as everyone else. So that's not really sufficient glue to hold together a true alliance. And we have to realize when people sort of put Chinese Americans under scrutiny, we have to always appeal to American principles that everybody is created equal. It doesn't matter where you come from. We're all Americans, and we play for Team America.
Karen Woods, we're going to have to leave it there. Karen Woods joining us from Toronto. Thanks so much.